Hello and welcome to LIVCHE Focus. It is post-match reaction show time after Liverpool have just lost their fifth game in a row at home, this time being beaten 1-0 by Chelsea in a game that was absolutely crucial in the fight for the top four and now leaves Liverpool in a seriously difficult position. I mean, it's now becoming hard to see where we go from here. It felt like after we won the game against Sheffield United, if we could get a positive result here at Anfield tonight over a direct rival in the race for the top four, with Jota coming back, with Fabinho returning to the side, that would have given us some real momentum going into the final third of the season. But as it stands, all it's done is widen the gap between us and the teams that we're competing with for those spots. And, I mean, on the evidence of tonight's performance, Liverpool have got no hope whatsoever of challenging for a high position in the Premier League. And that's what was really, really painful. I mean, like I said, it was the fifth loss in a row at Anfield. And anyone can see that it's not been going well results-wise for Liverpool for a few months now. You know, that is also it's now several months since the last time we won a game at Anfield, way back in the middle of December with that game against Spurs that put us top of the league. That feels like a lifetime ago now. But in all that time, there's always been something you can cling on to. You can look at the performance and say, oh, well, you know, there was a bit of a VAR diddle there. That penalty shouldn't have stood, or we were wrongly disallowed a goal, or we played well and we just didn't quite find the goal that our performance deserved. But on tonight's evidence, I mean, that game could have gone on forever and Liverpool would have not scored a goal. We were just absolutely woeful. I'm not sure we managed a shot on target. It was fairly late in the game when I saw a stat saying we hadn't registered a shot on goal yet, and we didn't exactly threaten in the latter stages either. And that was what was really frustrating as well. Like I said, in previous games that we've lost at Anfield, the derby being the most recent example, we at least put up a bit of a fight in the second half. We looked like we were getting back into the game. We'd stopped resting on our laurels and we were trying to seize it by the scruff of the neck. But tonight, yeah, we had more of the ball in the second half, but that actually worked in Chelsea's favour. They seemed absolutely fine with that. And listen, bit of credit to them. They played very, very well. They were clearly fired up to play under the new manager and wanted to prove that, you know, his playing style was suited to their skill sets and stuff like that. They were pretty impressive. And when Liverpool did at least try and get going in the second half, it was impressive the way Chelsea pressed, the way they were first to every single loose ball. They didn't give Liverpool much time in possession in any kind of dangerous areas, and they were excellent in the tackle as well, and very organised positionally. So they were impressive there, and they were good value for the 3 points, and that's frustrating as well because they look like they're the ones that are really hitting form at this crucial stage of the season. They're the ones who look like they could seal, and probably will now seal, a Champions League spot based on the recent evidence. But I mean, Liverpool didn't half make it easy for them at times, especially in that first half. We let them have the ball. We let them have it in dangerous areas as well. And what was frustrating was we didn't do anything with that. It's as I said in the pre-match video, I kind of wanted to see us let Chelsea have the ball a bit, let them come onto us, and then hit them on the break, take advantage of it. But there were no outlets. There was no Liverpool player looking to burst behind that Chelsea defence. There were no Liverpool players looking for that pass either. I mean, it feels wrong to pick individual players out, but in the same way, right to criticise them because they were all awful tonight. People can criticise the sub for Mo Salah, but I mean, apart from the fact that he's the top scorer and Liverpool's main outlet in front of goal, what the hell was he offering tonight to show that we should have kept him on the pitch? And you can say, well, what was Firmino showing? What was Sadio Mane showing? I can see why we took Salah off to shake things up in terms of the system. You put Mane out wide right and hope that that conjures something up. And for a moment, it looked like maybe that would happen. But, you know, Salah comes off, totally deservedly so. Curtis Jones is the one that baffles me a little bit more, because if there was one player on the pitch that did look like he might have something in his locker, it was him, and that was still intermittently. He was still poor for a lot of the game, but there were a couple of moments on the ball where he looked bright, he looked sharp, he was twisting, he was turning, he was shielding it, he was getting away from Chelsea midfielders, and he was looking to be progressive as well. But even that was in short spurts, and generally he settled into the malaise that seemed to be cast over the entire team. Thiago as well had another very, very poor game, which is so frustrating because we know he's a fantastic footballer, and Part of that isn't his own fault because he's not playing in the midfield that he's meant to be playing in. His deficiencies in terms of tackling and sometimes his defensive positioning and stuff like that are normally, or at least would normally be covered by the presence of Fabinho and Henderson, but we haven't been able to see that so far this season. But he was poor today. I think his selection was a bit of a misstep from Jurgen Klopp. You can say that, he's a world-class footballer. He should be making it into the 11, but tactically it was the wrong choice to have him on the pitch, especially alongside Curtis Jones. There was just no balance to that midfield whatsoever. Listen, if you're playing against Sheffield United, then fine. Those two attacking midfielders are what you need to be creative on the pitch. But against Chelsea, it's going to be much more of a battle in the centre of the park, especially when they've got players like Jorginho and a very resurgent N'Golo Kante, who was fantastic tonight. They are going to want to have the ball and keep the ball and do a lot with the ball as well. And when you've got other people like Ziyech and Mason Mount, who also want to drop deep and get involved in the midfield and play with the ball on the ground, you need people on the pitch who are going to give you a bit of horsepower, who are going to give you a bit of energy, who are going to look to win it off of those Chelsea midfielders. And I just felt like the lads who are on the pitch today were not doing that for us. Defensively as well, the goal was incredibly poor, and it was coming as well. It was so obvious that it was going to happen. I mean, we were disorganised down that right-hand side all the way through the first half. Fabinho and Trent Alexander-Arnold just didn't seem to be communicating at all. They were constantly being found in bizarre positions that were freeing up so much space for Chelsea. And then Fabinho, I mean, it's understandable the way he gets beaten for the goal because he's just lacking that burst of pace, which makes sense because he's only just come back into the side. And listen, if Phillips was fit, I reckon he may have even started over Fabinho, because Fabinho, while he's a brilliant player, just didn't quite look on it tonight. So I can forgive that lack of the burst of pace because, we couldn't really do anything about that. He just isn't fit and there weren't other options available. But the situation that leads to Fabinho being beaten there, where there's the disorganisation, the space for Mason Mount, the lack of an offside line that plays him offside and allows him the space to get in behind, those issues were all ones of Liverpool's own making that have nothing to do really with players not being fit enough or anything like that, and just to do with the lads on the pitch not being organised. And again, you can blame that on fitness and stuff like that. I mean, Kabak and Fabinho was our 20th defensive partnership of the season, and there have been times all through the season, and it was a lot of the time tonight, where Liverpool have looked like a collection of 11 players and not a team. And that's understandable because they've never been allowed to be a team. They've never been allowed to be an 11 that plays every single week. It's constantly other people coming in, other people dropping out. Tonight was no different, even though it's Fabinho and Alisson coming in and Jota then coming on as a sub, players that you think would positively impact us. It still changes the dynamic. It still means that we need to press the reset button and go back to square one and reassess the positions that players take up and the roles that they have within the overall team. And that is incredibly difficult, and that leads to a stodgy first half, which has been symptomatic of Liverpool's whole season, especially the last few months. But one thing that has stood out is that we have been a second half team, that we've set things right, we've turned things around at half time, we've worked out what's going wrong and rectified it, and that's happened over the last few games. It happened against Sheffield United, and it was nowhere to be seen tonight. That was what was really frustrating as well, was we went out for that second half and it felt like nothing had changed, apart from the fact that Chelsea were much more happy to sit off and take their 1-0 lead. I mean, we brought absolutely nothing to the table in that second half, and like I said at the top of the video, I think that is the worst one yet, because it's really hard to find any positives whatsoever. I mean, there is one thing, and that is that Jota is back, and there were a couple of moments, very, very isolated moments, where he looked like, what we've been missing. He was looking to get in behind, to pull defenders this way and that is almost a frustrating thing as well, because you can see how simple it is. You can see what Mane and Firmino and Salah have needed to be doing, because Jota's come on and he's done it straight away, and you think, obviously, that's Jota's skill set. That's what he's been brought in to do. No one's going to be able to do it as good as him. That's why we want him in the side. But it's a simple thing, and even if you can't do it as well as him, you can at least try. And time and again, we've been going through the motions without Diogo Jota, and it's been clear that a player of his ilk is what we need. So listen, fingers crossed that after this game, he can turn it round, getting back to full fitness, starting games hopefully, and making the difference for Liverpool, because God knows, after the way we play today, just abject, without hope, without purpose, we really, really need a player like Jota to kick us up the backside, put a rocket up our season and finally get us back on track. And listen, here's hoping that it's not too little too late. But that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching after what has been a very difficult experience for all of us as Liverpool fans. If you did at least enjoy the video, then hit that like button down there. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here as well. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back soon with the pre-match content for the Fulham game. Until then, bye for now.